This is Karen Elizabeth, Patton Jack's baby girl, and welcome to Karen's Inquisitive Corner. I hope you all enjoyed Self-Care Month in September. October is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this month, we're going to focus on mental health. And I will be having some pop-up interviews throughout the month. So please make sure you tune in and please, please, please like and share. And thank you for that. So today we have a guest, and her name is Lena. You all probably read where I put in some of the statistics regarding burnout. Statistics say that there are 52% of people that actually work are burnt out of their jobs. And along with burnout becomes a lot of physical and mental signs and symptoms of just being burnt out. And a lot of times we're in the forest and we can't see the forest for the trees. So we're in the job, we're having these mental and physical things going on with us, but we don't correlate it with being burnt out. There was also a study with a set amount of people. And in that study, it was found that 70% of the people that were a part of the study were actually burnt out of their jobs. And there are, of course, other things that you can be burnt out with. But today, we're going to focus on just being burnt out and how it affects us physically, but mostly how it affects us mentally. So, Lena is going to come on. She is a licensed social worker and she's also a licensed therapist. She has a special needs child and she has a lot of things going on. And she herself have actually experienced burnout. So she's going to come on. She's going to kind of tell us how she led up to this burnout, how it affected her. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I'm hoping some of you that may be in a job or in a situation that you can relate to Lena and really define that I'm burnt out. And of course, we're going to talk about what to do when you come to that conclusion that you're burnt out. So let's bring Lena on right now. Hello, Lena.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So tell us where you are.
I am in New Jersey, Central
Okay.
Jersey, for those who believe that there's a Central Jersey. There's a big old debate on that, but I am so excited and so grateful to be here. Thank
I
you.
am so glad. I am so glad to have you. Lena, let's start out. We always want to start out from the beginning. What led up to you being burnt out, and how did you realize you were burnt out? What were some of the physical and some of the mental things that were physically going on with you to say, hey, something's going on here, and for you to figure out actually what it was?
I I think a lot of it was kind of that dread every morning waking up, and I'm a crier. Like, I that's kind of how I
Me
express a lot
too.
of my
Me
emotions
too.
is through tears. You could blame it on me being a Cancer, you can blame it on whatever you want to blame it on, but I become tearful. So,
Mhm.
most of my mornings I would wake up and I would just start crying out of nowhere and just not looking forward to the day. It was a I was very blessed to start out. I got hired shortly after my internship. And so it was at an adult partial care. So it was kind of just, you felt like you were on 24/7 once you were at the job. So it was kind of like those thoughts of saying, like, once my day starts, it's
Mhm.
not going to end until I come home. And so there didn't really ever feel like there would be a break once I, stepped foot, not even once I drove onto the premises before even clocking in. And so when you start to express some of those concerns, you have things, phrases, and lack of support, right? I think was a big piece of it. And so you try and ask for help and you're told you're too young or you're too new in the field, and so it's like, okay, well, it doesn't change how I'm feeling. This is how I'm
Yeah.
feeling.
You were really already tired before you even went to the job.
Mhm.
When you got up, I've been that way. So when you get out of the bed, you're already exhausted and think, oh my God, I got to go in. But your job didn't start that way.
I went from 9 months of being unpaid as an intern to balancing classes, balancing my school assignments. I had a part-time job because I needed a little bit of source of income. I'm very blessed that I didn't really have, quote unquote, true bills, but I was still working, so I didn't have a lot of time. And so I was already, that's a big conversation that we're having in the social work field and in any of the helping profession fields, especially with advocating for paid internships so that we don't feel like we have to have a part-time job in addition to, right? And so we're already entering this field in such a high level of stress, and you don't really catch a break. I graduated in May. I started full throttle July 5th. And so you didn't really have a lot of downtime. I probably worked, I was working a retail job, so I probably worked as many hours as I could, in the interim and, getting ready. And so we were already kind of starting fatigued, right? And feeling pulled thin. They're preaching self-care in classes. They're talking about burnout and compassion fatigue, but you're like, oh yeah, once I graduate, this will be a breeze because all I will have to do is deal with work. And that wasn't the case.
Emphasize on you did your internship and then you went right into work.
Correct.
But then a couple of things. So after you did 8 hours, you went home. You had a special needs child, so your job didn't stop. It kind of kept going. But you said something really interesting about going through your intern, graduating, and then going back to work. Now, in hindsight, do you think you should have took some time off between graduating and then, hitting the job market right then?
It's tough to say. I don't think so because I think all of my experience that I got led me to where I am today, led me to the flexibility that I have today, the knowledge that I have today. And so when I was working in partial care, I wasn't a mom yet. So I was just kind of just fatigued and drained from
Yeah.
that nonstop. I had started to notice a little bit more of that burnout. My heart wasn't in it as much. I had asked for a transfer over into the other department, which was our outpatient. And so that allowed me a little bit more flexibility and that I'd never know how to do one thing at once, which is why, which also contributes to some of that burnout, right? Is like, we stretch ourselves too thin, whether it's within our control or not. And, so then at that time is when I had gotten pregnant, which was almost a blessing in disguise because I had a little bit more flexibility in managing my caseload. And so I was able to take off for doctor's appointments. Whereas on the other side of the department, because they always had to fill ratio for groups and stuff, you always kind of got side eye or trouble trying to take off, or you were guilted into taking off for too much. And it's like, I don't know, you kind of feel stuck. And so switching over to the outpatient was really helpful, but then there was high caseloads, right? There was a lot of, constantly talking about productivity, talking about just again, demand. And now we have a newborn at home. Right. And so at that time, I didn't know he would be special needs but still navigating, going from one doctor to the next doctor. And then you continue to see how long can you last, right? How long can I put up with this before a change needs to be made? And like a change that I can have control over versus a change that's forced upon me.
A lot of people in the medical field are experiencing that. It's just kind of too much. Explain what are some of the things that you were experiencing every day on your job that's led to this burnout.
We had 80 plus cases. I was responsible for 80 plus people. So that's, 80 plus stories. And I was kind of on the lower end of that. And so, some people were in the upwards of 90 and 100 clients. They weren't expected to see them weekly, but, that also caused a lot of strain too, because you wanted to see them more often, but you didn't have the availability in your schedule because you needed to fit everyone else in. So it kind of felt like you were doing a lot of surface level work because, seeing everyone, every other week or every 3 weeks, once a month, it feels like just checking in at that point. And adding another layer of majority of my caseload was Spanish speaking as well. So that also adds another complexity to it. And, thinking in it, I speak Spanish and I'm blessed and that I'm able to do so, but it just takes another layer of energy out from the day to day, right?
Yes.
Because it's not my first language. So I'm thinking in English, translating it into Spanish and, receiving what they're saying and then translating it back, and so there feels like a lot more of that demand, and then we're getting pulled to go interpret and help with the psychiatrist, and which we were okay with, but then they were coming at us saying we weren't meeting our productivity numbers. We weren't meeting, and it's like, how do you want us to be in two places at once? So it just felt like
Exactly.
anything that we did was never enough. And forget about paperwork. Paperwork was another, that's another administrative thing that they didn't really, offer that support or offer
Mhm.
those demands. And so you just kind of felt like that candle's burning at both ends. I had
Yes.
already started my private practice. Shortly after getting my full licensure, so as an LCSW, but I wanted to grow it slowly, but again, it felt
Mhm.
like that candle was burning at both ends, and I couldn't wait until I was comfortable enough to have a full caseload in
Yeah.
private practice in order to kind of transition out from community mental health.
It really kind of feels like, again, coming from the medical field, in audience, not just the medical field. I mean, this could be any and everywhere that you work. Sometimes it's so much paperwork, and it's so much dot this I, cross this T. You have to make sure you do that. But then when am I going to help the patient?
Mhm.
When am I going to be there for the patient? How can I be there for the patient? And when you touch here and there and you're not really given 100%, then you kind of feel like, because medical, it's just in us, it's just a part of us that we're not really given what we should, to the patient and what they really need.
I would love to meet everyone in like their first 6 months
Mhm.
of a job, right? Or their first year of working there. And we were some of the newer hires within like 9 years, so there was a lot of kind of old school mentality, or just like they were already burnt out. So they weren't, anytime you
Right.
were
They
trying to
didn't
come up with
care.
a new idea, or you got shut down. So that like it became very lackluster. That
Mhm.
sparkle really started to dim early on, because it's like, okay, well, why am I going to keep trying? Why am I going to, if I know that I'm going to get shut down? And so that kind of ruins that creative spirit, right? Being in
Exactly.
work environments that don't allow you to express yourself creatively, and that if you just get heard, or they try out your idea, you can feel like you're making an impact, whether it's healthcare, whether it's a traditional office job, whatever it may be. You want to feel like you belong there and you're
Yeah.
valued, and that's
Yeah.
the biggest part. Anytime that I work with companies, it's feeling when their staff talk about not feeling valued, not feeling appreciated. And sure, do we all want more money? Absolutely, right? That's always, but I try to work with companies, I try to work with teams. How can we appreciate one another beyond just a monetary
Yeah.
appreciation, right?
Yeah.
That thank you, that recognition, it does go a long way.
What were some of the physical and mental things that you were going through during the time?
De A lot of dissociation, so a lot of kind of just feeling disconnected from not really being present in my conversations, both with clients and with family members and friends, coworkers, just not really being mindful throughout my day.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm supposed to be paying attention to my clients, right? So that's when you start to notice, okay, I'm not doing my job accurately. I that fatigue, right? I definitely, my sleep suffered, because you're either up trying to do notes, or you're just up stressed about not having everything caught up, or just that emotional mental drain of the
Mhm.
day. So then you're kind of doom scrolling on your phone, and avoiding things, definitely having some unhealthy eating habits, and the sleeping too much, sleeping too little, right? So it mirrors depression very closely,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Again, so that those feelings of like hopelessness, the feelings
Mhm.
of that lack of loss of interest in things that you used to enjoy. So, like I said in the beginning, I'm a crier. So a lot of the times I would notice, okay, I would do okay for a couple months, couple weeks, and then just spiral again into, another round of tears, another round of, I can't do another day of this. So feeling like you truly like can't go on.
That incompetency on your job, did it enter into your home life too? You just kind of felt incompetent everywhere because all the pieces just weren't, no fitting together. I know. I just wasn't able to think. I wasn't
Mhm.
able to think things through and, think logically, and I was forgetting stuff, a lot of that. And I couldn't separate it from work and home. I just couldn't separate it.
Correct, yep, and I'm so grateful to my partner where he is very grounded, very level-headed, he encourages me and, sometimes he's like even now when I start getting too overtired or I'm not taking care of myself, he's like, "Go take a nap." Like, because that negative self-talk really revs up and says that we're not doing enough, says that, I'm failing in all of the things, or, I need to be 10 steps ahead of where I'm at currently, and so it really I do have tendency to beat myself up, and so it's with his support and his reminders of all the things, I'm very big on reminding people to zoom out, and he's reminds me to zoom out, right? Look back, take a step back and look at how far you've come, all the things you've accomplished, and not even just accomplishments career-wise, but just, raising a child and, doing it with a smile and whatever it looks like to you. Look at how many people love you and just going around and really appreciating the things that you do have. It reminds you, right? It reminds you like, okay, I do have things to be grateful for. I do have things that I'm blessed to say that I have. And it may be hard now, but this is all just those warning signs that change has to be made.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back that said no more?
I left right before the pandemic started. So I left in January of 2020, not knowing, of course, that,
Mhm,
in March the world would look a lot different. But
mhm.
we had finally got an appointment to the developmental pediatrician in sometime in 2019, and we walked out with 11 different referrals. So I had gone throughout that whole year of going balancing and managing doctor's appointments, and I think it was kind of that push of, okay, I need to have a little bit more flexibility and control over my schedule and my hours. And that's when I had left. I still had my practice at the time, but I had left and started working at a group practice as my main source of income while I continued to still build my private practice. And so that, because again, I couldn't do that full time expectation and those hours the way that the clinic or the outpatient department had wanted, and navigate doctor's appointments and try and, also manage my own caseload. So it felt like those candles were burning. I don't know that I would still be there currently just because of lack of support. But I think just having my child really put things into perspective of like we have to do things for them, right? We have to, and leaving places like that, take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our children and take care of our family.
The lack of support that we receive in some of our jobs, they want you, or you feel like, let me say that, they want you to put this job first. This job is first. I don't care about your family. I don't care about what you're going through. This is your priority. And, I want you here. I want you to do that. And that's really disheartening too, when you work at jobs like that you don't feel appreciated, that you don't feel listened to. But if your child is sick, your husband is sick, your mom is sick, or something like that, that is the priority. You left the job, and how did you feel when you left the job? Like you're being anxious or fearfulness. I'm sure you probably had headaches and all of this, trying to remember things. Did it go away overnight, or did it gradually go away, or did you just feel like I could just exhale?
I think there's definitely that big sigh of relief, right? Like, okay, that change is coming. And I probably gave them like a 2-month notice, 2 to 3 month notice, only because between the time that I had accumulated as well as all of the different hours and because of the size of my caseload, I wanted to be able to properly terminate with my clients. So think about breaking up with 80 plus people, that's
Yeah.
also, so like there was, and you had to kind of mask your excitement, like you had to I was sad to be leaving my clients, right? I was sad
Sure.
to be terminating that, and it was just kind of at a whole of I was just sad that our voices and our concerns weren't heard or they weren't put into practice. And so so I think kind of masking that like, yeah, I'm excited to leave, and
Mhm.
kind of playing it off as if you are still really sad and mournful on leaving the job, and giving them X amount of months notice just out of courtesy and again for proper
Mhm.
termination. And then of course change is scary and it's nerve-wracking because not many people who have their own jobs might not be able to go on their spouse's health insurance, which is part of why a
Yeah.
lot of people have to stay on
Mhm.
working a full-time job for benefits. And so it worked out really well for us that I was able to get onto
Mhm.
his health insurance. But again, that change is scary, right? Navigating, again, managing your time, managing all of the different pieces. But I knew that I would have a lot more support. I knew that it would be something that, again, I was in more control over, because if I needed to take a day off, I could, and I wouldn't no one would give me, any sort of backlash for that or any
Yes.
side eye. So that in itself was worth the
Mhm.
exchange.
Burnout can be disappointing.
Mhm.
It can really be disappointing because you gave your all to this job. And that's some of the things that you can actually go through when you go through burnout. So if you had to name some of the emotions, some of the feelings that you actually went through during this process, what would some of those adjectives be?
Overwhelmed, exhausted, depleted, I think is a big one. Feeling anxious, feeling
Yeah.
depressed, um, feeling hopeless, feeling like there's just no way out, right? Like that cycle, you just can't see out of that cycle. Um, I think also like almost like a numbness, right? That detachment from just your own personal being, your environment, your quality of work, right? So just kind of you're just kind of existing, you're just there, but
Yes,
there's no life to you.
I would definitely agree.
Mhm.
Did you deliberate before you said that I'm leaving?
I think towards the end, it was just kinda like those countless tears and knowing that I had my partner's support in making that transition. There was so many of us that were leaving sort of one after the other, and, the more people that were leaving, the more demands were put on others, and so
Yes,
again, I was already at my limit and, I didn't wanna stay for the aftermath, right?
I
And so
totally understand. It also brings out that therapists are human.
Mhm,
You know, they're human. What they
mhm,
go through is human. They feel the same things that everybody else feels. And sometimes they need that therapist or they need that counselor or they need that encouragement. They can help others, of course, but you still go through things in your own life.
mhm.
At the end, you left the job, you started your own practice. Was it just the affirmations from your partner that really got you there?
It was a big part of it. My love language is my words of affirmation. That self-talk isn't always believable, right? When we're
Yes,
in a headspace that's very negative or
yes.
very down or very hard on ourselves, it's like, I don't know, do I really believe that? But when I hear it from him, I know that he's speaking from his heart. And so I have that sometimes to lean on and just kind of that support. I think I was even in therapy at that time before leaving the job. And again, just I still wasn't able to kind of work through it. And so again, it was just so many different ways of like, okay, what can I do? And I think also like that self-talk really started to kind of become my own words as well, right? Those reminders of self. I was able to improve my sleep. I was able to it's ironically my commute was a little bit longer going to the group practice, but I was able to listen to like podcasts and, some self-help versus like just sleeping until the last possible minute, getting ready
Right.
as quickly as possible, and ending up at the job. Like, I didn't create a
Yeah.
lot of buffer time in between, but I think that you felt human again, right? Like, you felt like there was something to be excited for. My days weren't nearly as long as what they were when I was working in outpatient or as packed, the way that they were. And again, it still allowed flexibility. It allowed me to spend time with my family, and so it again, you were able to come alive, and so you got to see your personality come back.
And then also just knowing that you're worth it,
Mhm.
that you're definitely worth it. And you're exactly right. You can encourage yourself over and over and over again, but you always need that person to say, hey, you're going to make it. And, audience, That's the type of people we need to surround ourselves with. That's going to support us, that's going to understand us, that's going to stand by us. We need that. We need to hear that. We need that mentally to come into our psyche. Affirmations are amazing. You can post them on your refrigerator, you can listen to them, or just have your own to remind yourself every day. And that is really the foundation of self-care, is
Mhm.
knowing that you're worth it, going out there, making that decision and finding you and finding a better place and a place where you can be you and actually flourish.
And that change doesn't it most likely won't happen overnight. Those symptoms won't happen overnight. It's that gradual buildup, and you gotta kinda build self-trust, again within yourself of like, "Okay, do I really trust my thoughts? Do I, believe that?" But the more you repeat it, the more that you make a plan to create change, and little by little, you make a life that you want. So,
You
it's
also said
possible.
something. You also said something a little earlier, that you said your partner said is to look back at all the things you've accomplished. But some days it's really discouraging. It's
Mhm.
really, really discouraging, and people can see your smiles and your happiness. And you kind of made the comment that you were smiling, but maybe crying, on
Mm.
the inside. So we definitely have to kind of look back to see where we've come from, where God has brought us from to this day. And then that would kind of encourage ourselves. Lena,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I have really enjoyed this interview. Every corner, I end with what I know that I know that I know. So I would like for you to close out the corner today. Tell us what you know that you know this day.
I know that I'm not alone. And I think the more that we talk about burnout, the more that we talk about mental health, the more that we surround ourselves, like you said earlier, with people who love you and support you and believe in you, that you remind yourself that you're not alone in whatever struggle you're going through. But you're not alone. I promise you, you're not the first person to go through this, and you won't be the last.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I also want to remind the audience that I am a life coach and my first hour is totally 100% free. So if you want to call somebody and just talk, if you want to sit there for an hour and cry, if you want to curse, if you just want to be silent, whatever you need, call me. Call me if you need encouragement. I don't have to know you to encourage you and to remind you what an amazing person you are and that you're going to make it and that you're worth it. Just remember Karen's Coaching Corner. Nina, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Take
Audience, I'll
care.
see you next Saturday. Bye bye.
Thank you.